Okay, once again, a very good morning and a warm welcome to Imaginarium Aligunjan. Just to give you a run through of the agenda for the morning, uh, we will have Mr. Deepak Chopra talk, and then we will have an interactive Q&A session with Mr. Milind Devra and Mr. Nishith Desai, along with Mr. Deepak Chopra. So just an introduction of Mr. Deepak Chopra. Dr. Deepak Chopra, MD, FACP. He's a world-renowned pioneer in integrative medicine and personal transformation. He's the founder of the Chopra Foundation, which is a non-profit entity for research on well-being and humanitarianism, and Chopra Global, a modern-day health company at the intersection of science and spirituality. Dr. Chopra is a clinical professor of family medicine and public health at the University of California, San Diego, and serves as a senior scientist with the Gallup organization. He's the author of over 90 books translated in over 43 languages, including numerous New York Times bestsellers. For the last 30 years, Dr. Chopra has been at the forefront of the meditation revolution, and the Time magazine has described Dr. Chopra as one of the top 100 heroes and icons of the century. I'd like to request Mr. Nishith Desai to invite Dr. Chopra on the stage.
Good morning. This clap is for Deepak and Milind. Thank you so much for making to this Imaginarium today. And I'm so excited that we are able to host Mr. Chopra and all other friends, all of you here. Before I welcome formally my friend Deepak Chopra, let me tell you a little bit about the Imaginarium. Some of you have heard, some of you have already been here before. The whole idea of Imaginarium is to imagine ideas to change the world for the better together. It is just not for law or tax or other kind of stuff we are doing, but it is to ideate something, only for thinking. Those who are lazy, how many of you are lazy here? Okay, the majority of them. So, so this place is for the lazy people who want to think about ideas, come together, imagine whatever. It's a purpose-driven facility. What I found, my wife bought this land 10 years ago. She told me I bought this land. She never asked me anything. That's usual. And not uncommon. I think most of you suffer from that syndrome. But, and she said, okay, what should we do? She will be our house and friends will come, party and all that thing. And I said, but that will be on a weekend. What do I do on weekdays? And I'm a researcher, so I said, let us create something where people have a reason to come, some purpose to come, to do something interesting, exciting, without any inhibitions. Freedom of speech and expression is very critical to us as lawyers. We are very much wedded to that. And we are religious, political, everything. So it's all kind of but it's a positive, okay? And the whole idea is that, we do something beyond what we do regularly, right? And that's the whole purpose of this facility. In fact, another thing that happened was because this was just a thinking place, I saw a lot of incubators, accelerators, and other kind of facilities. But this is pre-incubation. So you just think, if you want to execute and do hard work, perhaps there are other people who will give you the space. But I think this is just to ideate. And ideation, when I was looking at the whole process of ideation innovation, almost for 5 years, Financial Times ranked our law firm as the most innovative law firm in whole of Asia. And, and I was invited by a number of law firms and other organizations in Korea and many other places to tell them how do you become innovative on a consistent basis. And I was thinking, what is the process of thinking, and ideation? So what came to my mind was, first of all, you start with some solo thinking. You read a book, you have some idea, walking on the street or otherwise. So what do you do? First thing, you talk to your friend who you think will be little receptive to idea. Okay, so you talk to 2 people, then he endorses the idea, so you talk to another 5, 10 people, then to 15 people, 20 people, 30, 50, 100, 200. So ideation flowers from individual to collective. So we took each of these pieces, so we set up a library here, maybe in the afternoon, some of you may be able to go around, and where you can think, read, then take idea to 2 people, so place for 2 people to 4 people to sit together, 10 people, 20 people, 50, 100. So that is how, once the ideation happens, then anybody can incubate you, anybody can fund you. That was the one thing. Second thing, we said that there is, what is the revenue model, you know? And I said, I am a lawyer, I am a student of art, I don't know money. So let's do one thing, let's not have a revenue model here. So this property is what we call private property for public good. You know, because then you have a lot more freedom to do what you do in your house and other kind of stuff. At the same time, we don't rent out to anybody. But if you have a high-level purpose or high-level thinking, then be our guest. And I said, in India, you know, to set up charitable trust is a very big headache. Many of you might have managed that. And these days even more. So we said, why have all this income? If I don't make income, I have no tax. I don't need tax exemption. So the model was, if you have no revenue, no income, you know. But the challenge was that you have to do funding. Okay, put some $25 million, right? And no revenue model. So I said, I don't want to go to any bank. Drop by drop, it took about 8, 10 years to build this place, you know. But we have no revenue model and no banking loan, nothing of the sort. So it's all, that's why we are able to do some of the things that we are doing. And drop by drop, I think a lot of ideas are coming up, a lot of interesting meetings have happened. And I would welcome, if you have a real passion to change the world for the better, impact creating things, slightly higher level thing, that would be fine. Last thing that we thought that if we do something, let us aggregate best from the world and do something best in the world, at least to the best of our ability. So we have aggregated a lot of facilities, including about 70-80% of this whole building has come from Germany or from Italy. Okay. And I spoke about it a little bit to other people in the morning. So only thing that we want to be a little careful is whatever you are, you know, seeing here and doing, handle with care. That's the main thing, because to replace one small piece of furniture or chair or something like that is very expensive and very difficult to replace, you know, importation, etc. But we wanted to prove that India can aggregate from the world the best. We can create something best in the world. And today we can be a nuclear powerhouse in a positive sense, not in real nuclear bomb. But I'm saying that, you know, these are the ideas with which this facility has been set up. So I think, and I'm so happy that all of you are here, house full today. And I wanted just to now welcome Deepak. Where are you, Deepak? Oh, you're hiding. Okay. So Deepak has been good friend for, I think, last couple of decades, and we have been interacting, and I've been telling him, come and talk to us. And one fine morning, I get a mail that Nishith, we are doing. So I say, oh, most welcome. I think it's so exciting. And here he is, you know. So thank you, Deepak. Welcome.
Okay.
You carry on.
Okay.
It's not my talk, so I'll take. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Nishith. Can you hear me? In the back too? Okay. First of all, thank you, Nishith Bhai, your family, and Cyril, and your lovely family and wife have been very kind to me over the years. So thank you, and thanks, everyone. We have the day. I don't know how many of you are going to stay in the afternoon, but what I'd planned was to say a few words about the future of well-being, and what is trending right now is something called the longevity experiment. So maybe a little bit about that. And then this afternoon, I was hoping to cover some more deeper aspects of what we call fundamental reality or the nature of reality. So if that's okay, if you want something else, that's also good. And then after each talk, Milind and Nishith will lead the conversation, and you're welcome to ask any questions. So just to give you a background, I'm a physician by training. I went to All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and I graduated in 1969, actually. And as I look around, a lot of you were not born when I went to the United States or became a doctor. I'm 76 at the moment, and technically speaking, this is my last phase or chapter of this, whatever experience we call the human experience. So I thought I'd write something called Meta-Human as the next adventure. That's what I'll talk about this afternoon. Let me start off right off the bat with maybe a little experience. So can you all close your eyes for a moment? So with your eyes closed, I want you to imagine a red sunset on the ocean. And now a rainbow. And now a starlit sky with a full moon. A green meadow. A rainforest. And now we shift to one of the other senses. So imagine listening to your favorite song. Imagine listening to the voice of your mother or your child. Imagine listening to a newborn baby crying. Imagine touching the rough bark of a tree and feel the sensation. Imagine walking barefoot on the beach or the sands or the grass. Imagine the taste of a mango. Taste of your favorite food, whatever it is. Imagine the smell of Chinese food, maybe an Italian kitchen, the locker room in your gym. Okay, now you can open your eyes. So as I just uttered these sentences, you had some experience, right? You had an experience of how many people could see a sunset, for example? Everybody. How many people could hear a sound in their awareness? How many people could feel sensation touching the rough bark of a tree? Okay, so here's the most important point that I hope we can get across is all you needed is an intention. And then you had an experience. So what is it that has the intention? What is it? So who or what had the intention? And where did it come from? This is one of the biggest mysteries today, and I'll talk to you about it. It's called the hard problem of consciousness. But we'll come to that in a little moment. That which imagines is without form. I'll repeat that. So that which imagines is without form. And that which is imagined has some kind of form. Some kind. Like, I said, imagine a sunset. Before you imagine the sunset, there was no form. As soon as you had the intention, you had a form. Now, when we say imagine, it's a lovely name, by the way, Imaginarium. Okay, that's what gave me the idea of starting like this, your Imaginarium. I was thinking how I should start. I'm never actually, what I'm sharing with you, I've never shared before. But that which imagines has no form, and that which is imagined has some kind of form. Now, when we say imagine, we usually use the word image. So people think imagination is only about images, but it's actually about every experience. And right now, I took you through the 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. But that which imagined had none of that. It was just a field of possibilities. It was formless. And therefore, it has no location. Anything that has a form has a location, like this has a form. My body has a form. This has a form. This has a form. But that, and therefore this has a location in both space and time. But that which imagines has no form. It has no boundary. And being without form and having no boundary, it is infinite. So, that which was imagining the sunset just now was infinite. That which was hearing your favorite song was that which is infinite. So in our Indian tradition, that which imagines, or that which is without form, is called consciousness or awareness. Same word. Now, if you want to get esoteric, you can also call it your soul. But, soul has religious connotations, and people are nervous of words like soul and spirit and God. So, depends on your audience. But right now, that which imagined is an infinite, formless, irreducible, fundamental, infinite, non-local, has no location, space-time. And that which is imagined has a location in space-time. So the formless is, in Hindi, in Sanskrit, is called Chetana. And then the rest follows. Mind, intellect, ego, physical body, energetic body, and what we call the physical world. So, the formless fluctuates as mind, as intellect, as what we call our ego identity, and as our physical body and our energetic body, and as the physical world. Because how do you experience the physical world? 5 senses. How do you interpret the physical world? Mind. How do you feel about it? Is emotions. On and on. So now, if you're familiar, and I see there are a lot of scholars here, I met, a lot of scholars already on the way to here, and they are all experts, and some in Vedanta and some in Ayurveda, and I heard all these amazing interests that a lot of very scholarly people have, including yourself, sir. Had a great conversation with you. And so you know all this already. So I don't think I'm here to share anything that you don't know. But this is the sequence, okay? Consciousness is fundamental. its subtle fluctuations are called mind, intellect, and ego, mano, buddhi, ahankar. And then that projects as the physical body, which we call Annamaya Kosha and Pranmaya Kosha, but those are words that sometimes can be very revealing, but to the ordinary mind are not very articulating what they think physical reality is, because you think physical reality is this. And if I asked you, what is this? You'd say, this is a stage and that's a screen. But that's a human construct. This is a sensation. This is a color. This is a color. This is a color. This is a color. That's a color. And colors, shapes, and forms go together. Without color, there's no shape. Without shape, there's no form. But that which is imagining that has neither color, nor shape, nor form. So when I asked you, do you see a red sunset? So where is that? You had an experience. Where is that experience? Is it in the brain? There's no color in the brain, so it couldn't be in the brain, right? Is color in the physical world? Is this color over there or in your consciousness? This color is not there. There's colorless photons that are coming from here to your eyes. Otherwise, you'd see this is blue. You'd see blue rays of light. You don't. You see colorless photons coming to your eyes. Then you see an electrical current going to your brain. And if you're a neuroscientist, you see electrochemistry in the brain. But there is no color, blue or red or shape in your brain. There is no sound. I told you to hear your favorite song, and you could hear something, but no sound in your brain. So where is all this happening? Where is your physical body being experienced? Where is your mind being experienced? Where are your thoughts being experienced? Where do ideas come from? You have this whole institution for ideas. And ideas lead to ideologies and conflicts and war and other things as well, not just great things. But where do they come from? Where does thought come from? Where does imagination come from? And all we can say, it comes from consciousness or awareness. It's a word. Okay? Or if you want to use Hindi, you say Chetana. Okay? And what is fluctuating are called, again, it's easy to speak here because everybody has a background, some background. That which fluctuates is called vritti. Vritti is a good word because it means disturbed and fluctuating. And if you are explorers of yoga, then forget the first line of the first chapter for the moment, where Patanjali says, now the teaching of yoga begins. But then the second line says it all. Okay, and then if you know the second line, you understand the second line, you don't have to stay here. Please have a good day. Don't waste your time. Okay, the second line is Yog Chit Vritti Nirodh. Yog is the settling down of the fluctuations of awareness, not the mind, because the mind is also a fluctuation. So that's very frequently mistranslated in English when they say yoga is the cessation or the quietening down of the fluctuations of the mind. No, it's the fluctuations of awareness or consciousness. Those fluctuations of awareness are then interpreted as mind, intellect, physical body, energetic body, and the physical world. So if you know what consciousness is, then you know what everything is. If you know what consciousness is, you know what everything is. And people say, how do you define consciousness? And the best way to define consciousness, the simplest way, because I go to all these meetings where people fight about definitions. They will fight, forget fighting about territory, people fight about ideas. And they go to war over ideas. In fact, if you look at all the wars in history, they're all ideological wars about ideas. And yet, no one questions where do ideas come from and how does the mind come into existence, because actually the mind is just a fluctuation. It depends on what other fluctuations you were exposed to that is your mind. But the mind is not primary. Mind is a fluctuation, as is the ego, as is the intellect, as is the physical body, and as is the physical world. There is no physical world. There are no colors in the real world. There are no sounds in the real world. There are no shapes in the real world. There are no sensations in the real world. There's only possibilities. And that real world is the world of consciousness. Everything else is a modified form of consciousness. So before I proceed, actually I've already gone off track. I had prepared a lecture, but then I heard the word Imaginarium, so I said, let's explore imagination and creativity, maybe. But before I go further, let me ask you a question. Is this interesting? Can you be a little more enthusiastic? Yes. Okay. So it is interesting. You want me to continue? Okay, so before I continue, one more thing. I'm going to ask you the same question, is this interesting? But do not answer it, and do not screw it up, please. Okay, I'm going to ask you, is this interesting? The answer is enthusiastic, yes. But when I ask you this time, don't answer the question till I raise my hand. Everybody clear on this? Sure? Yes. Okay. Is this interesting? So the question, is this interesting, is a mental event. It's a vritti. The answer, yes, is a mental event, also a vritti. In between is awareness. It's that simple. Okay. In between is what we call consciousness. So let me ask you the same question, but don't answer it at all. Just settle into awareness. Is this interesting? And if you feel a presence, that's awareness. That's consciousness. It's your soul. It's what we call I. I is not this body. I is not this mind. I is not the intellect. I is not the ego. And I is not all this. Although all this is a fluctuation of I. And that's the most common word we use in any language. Where are you? I'm here. Where is Deepak? He's there. Well, that's the biggest misconception, biggest illusion that bamboozles you into human constructs. And then, of course, we own our constructs. We go to war fighting about our constructs. When, in fact, that which creates the construct is independent of all constructs. That which experiences is independent of the experience. So the biggest mystery in the universe is not the existence of the universe. The biggest mystery in the universe is the awareness of the universe. Because if you did not have the awareness of the universe, then there is no universe. So universe and awareness of the universe go together. You can't have one without the other. In fact, awareness is primary and the universe is a changing, fluctuating form of that awareness. Including your body. Your body is a changing, fluctuating form. So when Patanjali says in the second verse of the first chapter, Yog Chit Vritti Nirodh, then he explains how that happens. How the consciousness, which is that which makes experience possible, is independent of all its experiences. And if you can get that, then that's freedom. If you are independent of all your experiences, then you're free. And that's what we call moksha. Right? Moksha is, I am independent of my experiences, including the experiences of my mind, my body, my intellect, my energy, my world. I'm independent of it. And if I'm independent of it, then I can choose to create what I want to create, including war, including everything else that we call unjust, but also become explorers of truth, goodness, beauty, love, compassion, empathy, joy, equanimity, and freedom from constructs, including the constructs that we call birth and death. Why? Because that which is formless can never be born. That which is formless cannot die. And therefore, it's fundamental, infinite, without cause, transcendent, irreducible, modifying itself into everything that we call reality. But what we call reality is not reality. Reality is a changing, fluctuating experience of the formless. So, Tagore, in one of his poems, he says, in this playhouse of infinite forms, I caught sight of the formless. And so my life was blessed. The formless is the only reality. If it has form, if you can see it, if you can touch it, if you can taste it, if you can smell it, if you can think about it, if you can imagine it, if you can conceptualize it, if you can philosophize about it, you can create science about it, it's not real. The only thing that is real is the formless. Everything is a modified form of that. So given that, and given, this is the greatest tradition in the world, I believe, and that's my belief, you don't have to conform to it, but I think the contributions of the sages of the Upanishads and then some of the followers of that, like Adi Shankara, Abhinavagupta, Buddha, they had a very clear understanding of the nature of existence and how we ultimately seek liberation from what is called human suffering. Because all human suffering, I'm not talking about other species, all human suffering is a result of what we call magical lies. India has a nicer word, it's called Maya. But I'll talk about magical lies in a slightly different way. All human suffering comes from magical lies. And if you read the Vedanta or Kashmir Shaivism or Buddhist ideas, of course, even there's a lot of ideological differences. But if you get to the heart of it, you've heard of the 5 causes of human suffering called kleshas, not knowing our fundamental nature, number 1. Number 2, clinging and grasping at experience which is ephemeral, transient, ungraspable, and it goes as soon as it's born. So every experience you have is actually because it's a vritti, it goes and then it's over. As soon as it's born, it's over. So clinging and grasping at experience which cannot be grasped is a cause of suffering. Recoiling from experience which cannot be grasped is a cause of suffering. Identifying with your skin-encapsulated ego is also a cause of suffering, because ego is your personality, but there's no such thing as a permanent personality. You're not the same person you were when you were 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or as a baby, or as a teenager, or as an 8-year-old, unless you're in the United States and you want to run for president, then that's okay. Okay. But hopefully you're not the same 8-year-old that you were when you were 8 years old. So everything that we call me is actually changing. You know, I'm grasping and clinging with the experience that can't be grasped. I'm recoiling from experience. I identify with the personality that can't be grasped because it's changing, hopefully. It's evolving. And then there's the fear of death. But if you understand that all this is fluctuations, then even death and birth are human constructs. They're projections of vrittis. And that is immense power, actually, because the vrittis can be modulated in any form, like a great artist. You come to this building and you see this art, and you see the, art is not just visual, but there's all kinds of art. But what is art? It's a combination of senses, or what we call modulations of sensory experience. So consciousness is that in which all experience occurs, in which all experience is known. You not only have the experience, you know that you're having the experience, but consciousness is also out of which all experience is made. Out of which all. So if I asked you, what is this? You'd say it's a clicker. What is this? It's a hand. But that's again a human construct. This is a sensation, some combination of sensations. So is this. So is that. So is everything else. If you understand how these modulations of sensations occurs, sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, all are vrittis, then you are an artist. And you're also a scientist, because scientists also explore. Scientists measure experience, artists have the experience. That's the only difference. Okay? So artists have what they identify with qualia, and scientists identify with quanta. Quanta is the smallest unit in which waves of energy and information are measured. So quantum of light is a photon. Quantum of electricity is an electron. Quantum of gravity is a graviton. And that's what science does. And as a result, it creates technology, and everything that we call today, our world is run by technology. Emails and text messages and Instagram and what have you. It's all technology. AI, immersive experiences, augmented reality, cryptocurrency, all of that is the measurement of experience, but the actual happening of experience is what we call art. And that experience is called qualia, Qualia. Instead of quanta, qualia is a unit of experience. If I ask you to taste or even imagine the taste of red wine, that's a qualia. If I say, what's in it? Grapes, fermented, that's science. Okay? But they go together, and they occur in consciousness. So consciousness conceives, governs, constructs, and becomes everything that we call the physical world. Okay, now, I said I was going to talk about well-being, so I should, and I don't want to go over time as well, even though time is a construct also. Greenwich Mean Time, not Botswana Mean Time, colonial mean time. Okay, so All of that is a construct. And now Indian Standard Time. Whatever, it's all made up. You know, everything that you call reality is made up. But since I was going to talk about health, let me just very briefly share with you how you got here, okay? So when you were first conceived as a fertilized egg, you had 24,000 genes. Half from your mother, half from your father. A gene is a stretch of DNA. DNA stands for 4 chemicals, deoxyribonucleic acid, and they're usually abbreviated as ATCG. So the alphabet of life is only 4 letters, ATCG. In English, we have 26 letters. Sanskrit, you have 50 letters. And all languages, you have at least 20 letters. Spanish, you have 24 letters, etc. But in life, you have only 4 letters. 4 letters make up all of life. Bacteria, plants, reptiles, mammals, primates, humans. 4 letters is all you need to create endless life forms. Those 4 letters make up what we call DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, and you have 3 billion pairs of these, what are called base pairs, that ultimately create a genome. Genome means all the genes you have. So think of a gene as spelling out a word. The word is a protein, and proteins is how we begin this life. You begin with a few molecules of proteins, and proteins are catalysts and enzymes and this and that, and ultimately you have a human baby. It takes only 24,000 genes to make a human baby. Where did the letters come from? Those letters, ATCG, they are made of what? They're made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and a few, basically four minerals, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. That's 96% of your body, and 4% of your body is other stuff, iron, sulfur, phosphorus. So where did this come from? And that came from the crucible of burning stars. So when a giant star exhausts its thermonuclear energy and starts to disappear into the heat death of absolute zero, what we call a black hole or a singularity, then hydrogen and helium, which were first created at the moment of the Big Bang, they start to fuse and you get all the heavy elements. So 50% of the elements in your body right now came from the Milky Way galaxy, from burning stars that no longer exist because they've disappeared into black holes and singularities. And the other 50% of the atoms in your body come from other galaxies. And there are, guess how many galaxies? 2 trillion galaxies. So 50% of the atoms in your body come from this dimension which is not even explorable. You know, we have the James Webb telescope right now. That's exploring the junkyard of infinity right now, next to Earth. But the galaxies go on and on. 2 trillion galaxies, 700 sextillion stars, uncountable trillions of planets, and uncountable trillions of not possibly, but probably habitable planets. You say, how can that be? You know, today there are scientists called astrobiologists, places like Harvard, MIT, Oxford, etc., and they look for what is called biospheres. Biosphere means similar climate. If a planet is very close to its sun, it's too hot, so no life as we know it. If it's too far away from its sun, then no life as we know it. But if it's within a certain range, it's called the Goldilocks zone, then not only is life possible, it is there because it's this kind of atmosphere. Okay, with that approximation mathematically, we now have 60 billion habitable planets just in the Milky Way galaxy. And uncountable trillions of planets in the universe, uncountable trillions of planets, habitable. That's today's science. And it goes back to Yoga Vasishtha, who says, in the vast expanse of consciousness, infinite universes come and go like motes of dust dancing in a beam of light. Just imagine the metaphor. There's a beam of light coming through the roof in Vasishtha's cave, somewhere near Rishikesh. And in this beam of light, he sees infinite universes. That's today's science. We are one planet. On scale, we are not even a speck of dust in all the beaches of our planet. The other day, I went to the beach. I was at a beach. I picked up 1 grain of sand. It was very difficult to actually pick up 1 grain of sand. Little breeze came, drifted off. I couldn't find it, and the beach didn't notice. So if tomorrow this planet, in our insanity, which we are insane, if we continue to sleepwalk to beyond climate extinction, no one will notice. We are in the junkyard of infinity, which we have created. And so be it. And yet, you know, we have all this stuff going on. Relationships, this, that, war, terrorism, eco-destruction, poison in the food chain. We are definitely sleepwalking to extinction. And maybe the universe will be better off. Okay, so now let me show you a few slides, and then I'll stop this part, and then Milind and you should come over. Milind, is that okay? So, okay. Just to share with you that I'm not making this up, okay? Because when somebody pretends to be a spiritual authority, which I'm not, then everybody believes that person. Don't really believe me, please, because I'm, first of all, not a spiritual authority. I'm a medical doctor who happens to be interested in consciousness and how it heals people. But this is a conversation going on right now in the world of science, okay? How humans learn to speak. Now, this is fascinating because up until 40,000 years ago, there were 8 different kinds of humans. We call ourselves Homo sapiens, which means the wise ones. Humble enough to give ourselves this name, but then we gave name to other species, Homo Neanderthals, Floroenses, etc. So there were 8 different kinds of humans until 40,000 years ago. They all looked like you and me, but slightly different. Some this big, etc. And they all had a language. They all spoke a little bit, but the language was restricted to mating calls, food calls, and danger calls, because that's how we survive. You reproduce, you eat, and you avoid danger. And that's all the language of every other species. Also, the human species had only that language: food, sex, and danger. Then Homo sapiens created a language for what? Guess what the language was? The first language. Gossip. Okay, so we created a language for gossip, which is basically stories, right? We are the only species on this planet that tells stories. Only species. This is why I'm in this city of storytelling, right? Mumbai, movies, books, etc. Stories have never ended, and gossip has never ended. Because gossip was the beginning of imagination. Who's sleeping with whom? Okay. Who can be trusted? Who can't be trusted? Etc., etc. And with that, we decimated the other species through the power of language, not through guns. These came later. That's another story. But we destroyed the other humans who didn't know how to speak our stories. And the first stories were gossip, but then the second story quickly was money. It's a story. There's no such thing. You cut my hair, you'll fix your shoes. I'll fix your shoes, but it's too inconvenient. Okay, I'll give you a shell. I'll give you a coin. I'll give you a piece of paper. I'll give you digital currency. Expert here. what do you call it? Crypto. There you are. So, it's all a story. We made it up, just like Greenwich Mean Time and latitude and longitude and nation states and races. Everyone comes from Africa. Everyone's genes here are African genes. It doesn't matter where you are. Eskimos or you're in Sweden with the whitest of skin, you're African. Same genetic pool, different climate, and then ideas and money and Wall Street and nation states and colonialism and wars, it has not ended, except our stories are becoming more vicious and we have modern capacities. And that's the dangerous combination. But this is what created everything. Starting with gossip and money and nation states and colonialism and slavery and racism, all of that is a fictional story. It's a magical lie. It's just ideas based on interpretation of sensations. Okay, I won't go through all this because it'll take forever. But just to share you that this conversation is very big right now. The two most open questions in science. First is, what is the nature of the universe? What is it made of? And the second is, what's the biological basis of consciousness? And they're both unanswerable for the simple reason they're both wrong questions. The universe is made of nothing. It's made of formlessness. And there's no biological basis of consciousness because biology itself is an interpretation of vrittis in consciousness. So this is all, they're trying very hard today, scientists. These are Nobel laureate scientists. They're struggling, but they have no experience of qualia. They're just measuring experience without understanding the nature of experience. Okay, let me now, show me the next slide, please. Okay, now let's get to health and well-being. Okay, quickly, because I want to address this. 95% of all illness today is what we call epigenetic. Epigenetic means not governed by your genes. Only 5% of illness comes from genetic mutations. 95% is because of some experience that went wrong or some story that we hold true that went wrong. And it was a totally provisional story. So now we know that 95% of all chronic illness, I'm not talking about acute illness, you fall and you break your leg or something like that, no. Diabetes, heart disease, coronary artery disease, hypertension, inflammation, Alzheimer's, cancer, autoimmune illness is all epigenetic, except for 5% or less, which will soon also be actually amenable to therapy because we are now technology, the world of technology is exploring what we call gene editing. So you'll be able to cut and paste your genes the same way you cut and paste your emails. Delete the Gmail, the gene that is causing the disease, insert the right gene, and you're cured. But 95% is this. Now, sleep, there are two kinds of sleep, deep sleep and dreamless sleep, both equally important, but sleep is a higher state of consciousness. If you want to actually explore consciousness, you need to explore sleep, and we can talk about that whenever. And lack of sleep is the #1 cause of premature death from heart disease, #1, and also lack of sleep is the #1 cause of Alzheimer's disease or senility as we grow older. And lack of sleep is the #1 cause of diabetes type 2 and inflammation and metabolic syndrome. So I could do a whole week on sleep itself. But my interest in sleep is more to do with consciousness. And we can talk about it later if you want. Meditation and stress management, everybody, I met on the board people who are experts on Vipassana, some people are mantra experts. But meditation is a huge discipline. It's not just Vipassana, it's not just mantra practice. It's also inquiry, exploring the nature of reality. If you want, I think it'll be a good idea for us to conclude the day with a short meditation, if you want that. Do you? So we should do that. because then we'll get rid of all these other misconceptions. What is this? I practice this and I practice this. You can practice anything you want, but have a clear idea that meditation is not a system of thought. And any system of thought cannot give you access to truth. Whether it's science, whether it's philosophy, whether it's theology, whether it's religion, no system of thought will give you access to truth. And meditation is a way to go beyond that. And then given that, then you can practice anything you want, as long as you understand the practice. And we'll do one. And stress management, yoga, movement, pranayama. I want to put these three things in one category because of the latest science. So right now we had a worldwide pandemic. We had a lot of disease. We had a lot of depression, and we had a lot of suicides. And our foundation actually used this pandemic to create a whole new movement called Never Alone, and I'll have you come and speak about it at some point. Suicide prevention, etc., because we made a lot of progress in understanding that mental illness and physical illness should not be compartmentalized. There's no mental event that doesn't have a physical, biological expression, no biological event that doesn't have a mental. So we don't even talk about the two. Mental is not above the head. Mental is the whole body, and body is the whole mind is the same thing. And mind has no location anyway, so, being formless. So what we found in this pandemic, our foundation, we had some librarians to see who was getting sick, who was dying, who was getting sick, and everybody who got sick. And those who got really sick had inflammation, had depression, had anxiety, had what we call stress in one form or the other. So just to, what is stress? Stress is the perception of physical or emotional or psychological threat, period. It doesn't mean that it's out there, it doesn't mean it's here, it's your interpretation, I am feeling threatened. And so stress can take any form. What we call anger is the memory of trauma in the past. That's what anger is. When you say something to somebody and they get angry, it's not because of what you said. That may be the precipitating factor, but there's a memory of trauma that triggers that. So memory of trauma, and everybody has been traumatized, so everybody has anger. Okay? But hostility, not everybody has. Hostility is a dangerous emotion. Anger is okay once in a while. It's unnecessary, but it's fine. But hostility is a toxic emotion. Hostility means you hold a grievance, you want to get even, you want vengeance, you want so-called justice, etc. That's the dangerous emotion, causes inflammation. Fear is the anticipation of trauma again, because you had trauma in the past. Guilt is institutionalized now in religion. Sin. Okay? So guilt is blaming yourself. Religious institutions are amazingly good at fostering guilt. And guilt leads to shame and humiliation, and ultimately the combination of all of the above is what we call depression. So what we saw was everybody who got sick had one form of another of either hostility, guilt, shame, depression, fear, and inflammation. Now we can measure inflammation through blood markers. So this is the first time you can measure how much stress a person has. And we were able to predict actually who's going to get sick, who's going to die. Even the younger people who were dying had free-floating anxiety and depression and inflammation. So because of my personal interest in yoga, and yoga has become so huge across the world, although only associated with asana, and Patanjali devotes only 5%, by the way, to asana. The rest is the 8 limbs of yoga. But what we discovered is that in our yogic literature, there are words used like Brahmanadi, Ida, Pingala, Sushishma. And the corresponding nerves for that is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the vagus nerve in Latin, which the English word is related to is vagabond. So this nerve travels from the midbrain. It influences your facial expressions, your tone of voice, eye movements, your heart rate variability, your lung expansion, contraction. It innervates every organ in the body, and it is the healing nerve. It's Brahma Nadi. Okay, and if you can activate this Nadi through yoga, pranayam, and meditation, you can override stress or sympathetic overdrive. So these three things I mentioned, meditation, movement, yoga, pranayam, sleep, they actually counteract inflammation in the body. If you do just this, you will heal yourself. Because we have a healing nerve in the body. And now we are creating actually technology to stimulate the healing nerve. You can wear an ear pod and you can stimulate the auricular branch of the vagus nerve, and you could be playing tennis and your body is getting healed. Inflammation is coming down. Actually, vagal stimulation is something some people need to consider here. Then emotions. As soon as emotions are recognized as the major cause of biological distress, the major cause. So anytime you have anger, hostility, guilt, shame, depression, fear, then you have sympathetic overdrive, you get inflamed. Anytime you have empathy, empathy means you feel what another person feels. Anytime you have compassion, you have the desire to alleviate suffering, even the desire. Anytime you feel love, compassion, joy, equanimity, stimulates the vagus nerve. So this has a biological basis. Emotions have biological basis. And nutrition, I never believed in this. You know, people used to come to me and say, I changed my diet and my cancer went into remission. I changed my diet and my heart disease reversed. I did not believe them because I wasn't trained in that. And today people are not trained. But now we know as soon as you put food in your body, it encounters 2 million genes which are not human in your body, bacterial genes. You have only 24,000 human genes, the rest are bacterial genes. Technically speaking, you're a bacterial colony hanging on to a few human cells. But the human cells think they're important. Okay? It's the bacteria. I think that humans are the awakening of bacterial consciousness. Humans are the awakening of bacterial consciousness, and now that human consciousness is messing up the world. So now we need to wake up to the next thing, which is meta-human. Promoting my last book, meta-human. Okay, so all this nutrition, a diet that has maximum diversity of plant-based foods, vegetarian, and which is organic, does not come from a factory, does not have pesticides, organicides, chemicals, you name it, steroids. Our food is poison now. So getting poison is creating dysbiosis in our body, leading to all kinds of... You can change your 99% of your gene expression, 99, which is bacterial, just by changing your diet. In 6 weeks, you'll have a new bacterial software. And if your body is the printout, you can print out the new body in less than 6 months. Seriously. I'm not kidding. I'm 76. I don't feel 76, but it's a fact. Unfortunately. 76 is 76. But biologically, I don't feel that because I know that your body is just a printout. It's just a vritti. So clean up the things that are causing the vrittis. That's it. And that's nutrition. You can change 99% of your genetic information. 99%. So your body is just a byproduct of that. And you can do it through nutrition, but you can do it through all these things. And finally, biological rhythms. We have 4 kinds of rhythms, circadian rhythms. Anybody who's had jet lag knows what that is. But we also have seasonal rhythms. We have lunar rhythms, and we have gravitational rhythms. Now, Western science has totally ignored all this, okay? There's, in fact, 2 years ago, they got the Nobel Prize. Two guys who described circadian rhythms. But if you study Ayurveda, Vedanta, or any of the Eastern wisdom traditions, Unani medicine, and on, you'll see that there are 4 rhythms, and they're all equally important. We are a symphony of the universe. Universe, one song, and you are one tune. And you are part of the symphony, and whether you know it or not, you're dancing to the tune. And when you don't dance to the tune, your body gets sick. So restoring biological rhythms is a way of restoring homeostasis or self-regulation. You can do that anytime you are in nature. You can, in Japan, they have a custom called forest bathing. You can do it when you walk bare feet on the earth, bare feet on the sand or beach or grass. And today we have electrical devices, so you can sit on a cushion. I sleep on a grounding mat in New York. I'm on the 5th floor, but my mattress is connected to the earth through a grounding wire. So while I'm sleeping, I'm actually restoring my biological rhythms. If you do these 6 things, you will avoid 95% of chronic illness. And now we have longevity studies that show clearly that you should be able to live beyond 100 if you want, and choose the moment of your death by choice in samadhi, in meditation. You don't have to die of disease, which is another misconception. People, you know, these days you can't even sign a birth certificate without identifying a disease. So what was the cause of disease? You can't say natural causes. They don't accept it, so you have to make up one. But you know, in these Eastern wisdom traditions, it was normal to say, been there, done that, goodbye, take some Mahasamadhi. And we know people, you know, J. Krishnamurti and so many people, Ramana Maharishi, and even in modern times who have done that. So if one person can do it, anyone can do it, because we all have the same biology. Okay, so that leaves only one thing, which I'm going to talk about in the afternoon. Because no matter what you do, you still will get old, you still will have infirmity, and then there is death, because without death, there's no recycling of information, no energy, nothing. Everything recycles in the universe, including plastic, believe me. So information recycles, plastic recycles, energy recycles, so does consciousness recycle. You don't have to use the word reincarnation, because that, again, conjures up all kinds of mystical, religious ideas, but believe me, consciousness recycles, and there's a lot of evidence for that. I'll stop here, and I'll ask Milan to come, and Nishith, please join. And I'm sorry, I think I went way over time, but we'll stop here, and then we'll see.